My goal with this channel is not to start every single video talking about Destiny and how it's gone and how it died and how it's never going to come back or how hard it's going to be for it to come back. And that's not really what I'm talking about today either, so rest easy. But what I am talking about is a different looter shooter that has helped me heal and cope with the loss of Destiny more than the Monument of Triumph update has itself, which is just beyond shocking to me because the game that I am talking about, one of my favorite games of the year so far, is, of all things, Splatoon Raiders. Yes, if you are familiar with Splatoon, it is the quirky multiplayer, mostly multiplayer game from Nintendo that has 3 other entries in it, where you play as a squid kid, where you can turn into like an inky squid and jump into the ink, and you paint the battlefield, and whoever has the most ink on the battlefield wins, and there's some other modes and things like that, and we'll get into some of that in a little bit. But that game now has a looter shooter spin-off that is truly and genuinely fantastic. And it's a budget title, so it's only $50. Nintendo is really like going for it on this one, and they have absolutely nailed it on what is basically their first real attempt at something like this. And I'm smitten, I am hooked, and I want to talk to you about it. So no script today. We're just going to sit here with some notes that I have prepared and discuss why Splatoon Raiders has just been doing it for me real good since I got a code from Nintendo about 2 weeks ago at the time of this recording. So just a little background and context about the history, my history with Splatoon, I should say. So I've never really been able to get into the multiplayer games. I've tried, I've talked about it a bit on the Escape Will Make Me pod, but like I kind of felt like I've been more or less out on multiplayer stuff for quite a while. Like co-op stuff I'm totally down with, but I spent a lot of time in the League of Legends mines in college, and I think that was such a heightened multiplayer experience that I really, really, really loved for a long time that I think jumping into stuff like Call of Duty and other things like that, or even the Crucible and Destiny, just didn't do it for me. Just didn't really do it for me, and something like Splatoon definitely didn't do it for me, although I appreciate all the people who really, really love that series. And then the single-player offerings that they had in like 2 and 3, I thought they were okay, but they weren't very deep to me. I just didn't find there to be a lot of depth as I was running through and playing, and as much as I enjoyed shooting ink around and having a good time, it just didn't do what I really wanted, which is a shame, because I really thought the world and the vibes and like the music and everything, the colors and everything that is around like the periphery of Splatoon was really, really cool. I love like ocean sea creature stuff. I like water Pokemon for some reason. I'm not a zodiac guy, but like I'm technically a water sign or something, so maybe that's why I like it. Who knows? But I have always liked ocean stuff. I wanted to be like an oceanographer when I was like a really little kid, before I even knew what that meant or how you had to be good at science, which I'm not, so that never worked out. But I've always enjoyed that kind of thing. So it really bummed me out that like this really cool, vibey aesthetic was, to me, wasted on the other 3 Splatoon games that just like I had very little interest in what they were doing. Now, one thing that Splatoon started doing that I thought might be interesting to me was a thing called Salmon Run, which was a special mode that was kind of like Gears of War's Horde mode, but instead of fighting locusts that pop out of the ground, you are a bunch of squid kids that fight freaky mutated salmon called salmonids that would kind of come out from the ocean, I think, to attack you and your friends on the beach or whatever. And you would stand there and just try and see how many waves you could survive. That's as far as I understand of how Salmon Run worked. I don't actually know how it works because I never played it because they did 2 things that just didn't really work for me. First of all, I needed to have friends that played Splatoon, which I did not. Most of my gaming friends were not really big Nintendo people, so I wouldn't really have anyone to jump in and play with them, which sucked, because it seemed very cool. But the major issue, the big problem, I would have just jumped in with like randoms, but they did this weird time rollout stuff that just didn't make a lot of sense to me, or just like sometimes it's like the matches wouldn't be available. Kind of like Cryo Archive in Marathon or something. if you're familiar, but it just, yeah, sometimes it just wouldn't be around, wouldn't be available. And in the like 3 or 4 days that I tried to enjoy Splatoon, you know, I purchased it as like a broke college kid, and I tried it out, and I tried to get in there, and every single time it would just be like, nope, it's not up right now, and I'd be like, well, maybe I'll come back, and then I stopped coming back, and then I never played it. So, but it seemed cool, it seemed interesting, and it seemed like a little bit more fun, albeit, you know, relatively simple, certainly compared to what Splatoon Raiders is. But Splatoon Raiders takes a lot of the DNA, as far as I understand it, from Salmon Run, and it applies it a lot more broadly to the entire game, and then it also adds a ton of levels of depth here. So, like, the basics of the game, and we'll get into the mission variety a little bit later, is that you are basically a mechanic, an engineer, squid kid, that is hanging out and working with this in-universe, like, pop band called Deep Cut, which consists of these, like, 2 pop idol girls and this giant manta ray, who is awesome. And you crash land in the ocean like you're looking for treasure or something. I don't know. The story, like, I didn't pay much close attention to it, I'll be fully honest with you. It is not the thing about the game that interests me that much. The world is cool, but the story itself, you know, you're looking for treasure. But you crash land, and you, the engineer, builds your team like a rig, like a crane, like with a big crane on it, and there's like a weird crane game thing that you can do, but you're basically this survival rig floating in the ocean. And that is the basis of it, and you are surrounded by these islands. You can go on and complete missions where you go in and fight 2 different kind of crystal nodes in the area, and you have one of the members of Deep Cut with you at all times, and in this submersible like mining vehicle, and they'll shoot at some stuff, and you can like jump off the top of their head for like a big boost of jump distance. But really, they are there to mine crystals when you reach them, and you have to clear out the salmonids around it in order for them to mine the crystals. That is the most basic sense of what you do in the game, but it is surprisingly deep, like shockingly deep. Like, I started listing out all the different things in my notes about that I needed to talk about how deep the game systems are, and I was just like, oh right, yeah, yep, nope, that one, nope, that's another currency. And it's like, it feels like a loot game because it is one, which is excellent. And there are tons of different ways to customize yourself, and I'm gonna go into that real quick. So there are classes in this game, kind of. Every character, you get to choose whether you like which tank you want to use for your ink, and there is a, like, you know, damage warrior type tank, there's a speedy, you know, roguish tank, you could say, and then, or there's a like more tactical engineer warlocky magic person kind of tank. That's the one that I went with. It's called the tactical tank, and each of these tanks, what makes them unique is they have some unique abilities to them that you can unlock later, which I'll talk about again in a second. But really, the entire game revolves around gadgets that you can attach to your tank, which basically function as vehicles. They sit on the L and R buttons on the Switch, and they do a ton of different things depending on which ones you choose. So like the warrior one has like this axe ability that starts with you pull this big paint axe off your back, and you dash forward and you slash with it anime style, and it causes kind of an explosion of ink in front of you that deals a bunch of damage to salmonids. And all of this is like an alternative to just shooting them with the gun that you have, or the paint roller that you have, or you still have weaponry like in a traditional Splatoon, and you're still shooting the ground to make it so you can dive into the ink and everything like that, and move faster. But really, for me, it comes down to trying to use your abilities as often as possible, much like late stage Destiny. And all of these abilities have, you know, very unique properties. There's the axe one that I mentioned before. There's this like dash jump one where you basically do like a jump slam kind of thing, and it does this big ink explosion. There's like a boomerang that you can throw, or the tactical one. And the reason I really like it is I'm a turret girly. I love a game that will give me pets, minions, or turrets to throw down, and so I picked the one that lets you pop down turrets. But I don't just have turrets. I have a turret on one, and then I also have this like laser beam that you throw down, and it attaches a tether to you, and then where it stays stationary, and wherever you go, a laser goes between you and the tether, and it damages anything in between you, which is amazing for cutting down huge waves of salmonid just by going and flanking around them or something. It's creates a bunch of different playstyles, and each tank has like 5 different gadgets, and you can then level up your tank by collecting salmon eggs, which are dropped by salmonids. Once you get like 50,000 eggs or something while wearing one particular tank, you can level it up, which gives you a unique ability. So like on the tactical tank, I think this is how this works. When I dive into the ink and I'm in there for long enough, it gives me like a ring around me that does damage to anything that walks inside. And like for the speed one, which is really helpful, when you dive into the ink, when you come back out, you're covered in this like ball, which makes you move faster, but also it spreads ink on the ground around you and makes it to where like you're basically creating a trail everywhere that you go. The damage one is boring. It just gives you like a 20% boost of damage, but that's still super helpful, and you notice it when you're doing things like fighting bosses or really heavy duty salmonids. But then you can evolve it even further by, and this was one of the first things I saw in the game that made me be like, oh, this is gonna really click with me, which is that you, like the 3rd level for your tanks, for your classes, you have to get 50,000 more eggs for your tank, and then another tank that it asks you to. So for the it's set. So for the tactical tank, it's the red damage tank. You have to get 50,000 again in the tactical, and then 30,000 in the red one. And when you do that, you can evolve it for one final time, and you gain the ability to attach another gadget to yourself. So instead of L and R, it's LR and then the A button. But that other gadget is from that other tank type. So I don't really like using the damage tank very much, but I really like one of the damage tank's gadgets, which is this like whirly top that spins out and will track down salmonids. And I like that one a lot. I think it's really cool. I enjoy using it. So I now have that on my tactical bag because my tactical bag is leveled all the way up. And then I was like, oh, that's rad. And then I started collecting more salmon eggs, and it wasn't going into any XP bank. And I recalled that there are certain levels that ask you to basically play it 3 different times, one as each tank, and you get a different treasure, which gives you a different perk, which you can assign to your like relic slots that you open more of, which are basically like passive perk slots that you open more of over the course of the game. And so I was like, oh, I want all those extra perks, and I want to make sure that I can jump into any of these tanks depending on these levels. So I'm going to start leveling up these other tanks as well. And so I basically just started swapping between the different tanks as often as possible, trying to level them up and keep myself, to give myself options so that I can play with whatever I want. And so now I have, my speed tank that has my jump and the boomerang, but also now I also have a turret, so I can jump and then drop a turret behind me and then keep going forward and keep moving fast. And similarly with the red one, I have the top on there, while also having this like spinny circles. It's kind of like the Bible of garlic in something like Vampire Survivors. It just circles you all the time. And now I have that paired with the slam from the speed one too. So you can just you grow and you feel so much more powerful when you're using a tank that has a 3rd gadget on it, which is just such an important power fantasy thing for games like this, and it just completely nails it. And on top of that, you can also tinker with your gadgets by adding different gadget parts, and you gain more capacity for gadget parts over time. So each gadget part has like a perk element to it, and it takes up a certain number of slots, like any system in games like this. But these gadget parts can be really impactful. They can do things like, oh, your turret has increased range, or has a shorter cooldown, or when you drop it, it has an explosion, or when it expires, it does an explosion, or it has like a little sprinkler around it that's constantly shooting ink everywhere. So there's tons of different stuff like that. But then there's completely transformative ones. Like, oh, now you can have 2 turret charges at once, which is huge. Or, oh, when you shoot out the tops, it shoots out 2 instead of just 1. They do less damage, but you shoot out 2 of them. But I now also have another one for the top that makes it to where I have 2 charges of it. So I can shoot out 4 tops at once, where I used to only be able to shoot out 1. And it completely changes the way you play and the way that you equip, and it makes it feel like your build is unique to you, which is a crazy thing to say about Splatoon. And it's just, it feels awesome. And the way that the game's difficulty ramps up, but there's so many like powerful high tier salmonids now that do unique things. Like there's one that's just a salmon that sits on like a giant stack of pots that is like a sniper, and then there's like a whale one that jumps up from the ground that's really pain in the ass to deal with. And there's a ton of these different kinds of salmonids, and so having these increased gadgets feels like necessity as you level up and you get further into the game, and it becomes more unmanageable and unwieldy. On top of that, you have skill points that you get for leveling up or by doing these dungeon things that I'll talk about in a second. And you can do simple things like, oh, I'm going to upgrade my health, I'm going to upgrade my weapon damage, or I'm going to upgrade my gadget damage, or you can use them to upgrade the amount of slots that your gadgets can use, that you can use to customize, which I would always do as somebody who is primarily focused on attaching, parts, being a gadget-focused person, because turrets were a huge part of my damage on my class. So I super focused hard on that, and I'm still very far away from having my health and weapon damage fully leveled up because it felt less important to me than the other thing. So you're just making like meaningful, interesting loot decisions all the time. Then you have your basic weapon, of which there are tons and tons of different types. There's like normal shooters. There is like a bow and arrow ink thing. There's like a minigun. There's a shotgun umbrella. There's tons of different stuff that you can do and customize. And then those things can have higher rarities, which then can add additional perks like, oh, they take less ink to shoot, so they're not using as much, or that you move faster while you're wielding them. It's just, there's so much depth there, on top of you also upgrading your base and creating new systems that allow you to then build gadget pieces on your own, so you don't have to just go find them, or upgrade them from your bag, or go and upgrade your weapons a certain number of points. And then there's like pearlescent tier 5 weapons, not to trigger a Destiny player, like 5 stars on these weapons that are more unique to them. So they have a bunch of different perks, and then you can go fully customize and switch out the perks that you want on them for a pretty hefty price. Then there's, as you collect more treasure, you get an increased bonus to the amount of crystals that you get when you're mining them from the ground, which helps you become more efficient. It's just like, there's just a lot going on in the best way possible. Where every time I come back from a mission, I feel like, oh, I'm going to go check the randomly dropped loot that I got to see what kind of cool new weapons I have, or see if I can swap something out. Maybe I'm using a powerful weapon, but I don't really like it, so maybe I'm hoping that I'll get another one that's decent and in a similar category of power or of level or something like that, or I'll get enough currency to go upgrade my old one, or I'll go and do one of those relic missions and I'll get a new relic perk, and then that changes things, or I'll be able to finally afford that new gadget part that I want. You're always chasing something, which is great because the game is also designed to have replayable missions where you're playing them and then you're playing them again on spicy difficulty, and then after you beat the game, when roll credits, you unlock like an ultra spicy mode that has like a 3rd tier to basically every mission in the game, which is just like, it just feels like there's so much to do. And I beat the game at level 40, and having done basically everything I could do, and then I now have missions that are like recommended level 80 on some of them, and that I assume is the cap, because it's the highest recommendation I've seen, and that's just so great. I'll talking about the missions here. There are these like main missions which are more linear, and they have like a few collectible things in them, including these compasses that you can find, which then help you unlock these dungeons, which are more like gadget-focused puzzle things, kind of like shrines in Zelda that get you skill points, but really you're just kind of rolling through these areas, grabbing crystals, shooting some salmon, and moving on. Then there's like these challenge missions where you basically are digging into the ground, kind of like Pikmin 2 style, and fighting just a huge wave of salmonids that's like, usually it's unique, sometimes it's like, oh, now it's a bunch of these flying saucer guys, or just a huge wave of some really chunky dudes, or a bunch of them that shoot these giant like sonic waves at you, or spit vial or whatever, and all of them are a little bit unique and different, and so those can be really chaotic and tough, especially when you get to the spicy versions of them, and that makes them very fun and engaging to replay, especially because you can go back and you can play one that you have now out-leveled, basically, and just completely demolish it, even though it might have given you a bunch of trouble earlier on. There's really great boss fights in the game that are super fun, creative, that also have that like kooky salmon flavor to them, while also just being like engaging, and like their health bars are chunky and serious. Like the game is not hard on the base difficulty for sure, but it's very much like you're going to be in there battling as hard as you can, and oftentimes you are up against a clock in terms of like killing a bunch of salmonids and then collecting the eggs that you need to move to the next level in time, which is typically how you move to next areas. Then there's this whole like elaborate final stretch to the game that is just really and cool, that culminates in this really kind of flashy end boss battle, and then you unlock some end game stuff that it wants you to try out. On top of all of that, you can play the entire game in co-op if you want, which I haven't, but I think I probably will go back and play it with my wife sometime in the future if she wants to play. And you can also like jump into match made. You can search basically to look for people who are looking for help. If you're struggling on a level or something, you can like Monster Hunter style hit a button before you go into it and call an SOS, and a bunch of people can join you for the mission, and it like opens up matchmaking, and you can go do that, and you get like a bonus loot when you do it to go help those people, which is just very satisfying. And it's really cool to drop in to a mission that someone has been struggling with and just help them bulldoze it with your super powered gear. It's just really neat, and it's super fun to play and replay, and I've just enjoyed grinding it. And it's been a minute since I've really enjoyed grinding something in a game like this, where I feel like I can just sit down and play for extended periods of time, and maybe I'm making progress on new things, maybe I'm just spending a whole session just replaying old levels on spicier difficulties to get XP and to get new loot. And either way, I feel satisfied, and I feel like I'm moving forward and I'm making progress, and my inkling is growing in strength and in power. And that's going to slow down now that the credits have rolled, but now there's like these 5-star weapons for me to chase and customize, and these like even pearlescent mods for my gadget. Like, I had not seen a single pearlescent mod, and then I finished the final boss, and I went back and I went to that laser one that tethers to you, and I found one that splits the laser into 5 different lasers. So now whenever I move, there's like this star of laser ink light that just spins depending on how I'm moving with it. It just shoots off in this like 5-corner like a hand. And it's just awesome. It just feels fantastic. And you know, it's not Destiny, right? And it's not trying to be. It's just trying to be a really good looter shooter. And, you know, I am hopeful that we will see something much more in the realm of Destiny, like at BlizzCon. I talked about that in my StarCraft video that came out just earlier this week at the time of this recording, so you should check that out. But I appreciate that as much as I want there to be a new Destiny in my life, and as I hope there will be, I appreciate that there are just having a great looter shooter experience with something that isn't Destiny and not trying to be like it. It's just a great grind game with excellent mechanics that makes me feel good about growing and making the number go up time and time again. And that, I think, is a really nice reminder. As much as I'm always hopeful that next Destiny thing is on the horizon, that another actual Destiny game or a game that is just Destiny adjacent is coming, I'm still hopeful. I'll always believe and hope and pray, but it is just really great to have something that is not trying to do that. Scratch a very similar and very satisfying itch. And I'm totally smitten with it, man. I love Splatoon Raiders, and I'm just so charmed to finally have something in the realm of Splatoon that I really connect with. And I you know, it has me second guessing going back and checking out those single player levels again and giving it another shot, because I'm like, man, this feels really fantastic. So that's me on Splatoon. I just can't recommend it enough. It's probably going to feature pretty prominently on my game of the year list so far, and yeah, I highly recommend it. If you have a Switch 2, you should check it out. It also just like, it looks gorgeous. So, but all the Splatoon games do. So this is my second kind of rambly, no script review thing. My sincere hope is that on top of doing the Wonder Twins Business Hour stuff with Jake a couple times a week, that I'm also going to be able to get in and get an edited video out like I did this week with StarCraft, and then also do one of these kind of yap topic videos. Maybe it'll always be about a review type of thing, probably, because I'm always playing something new. but maybe it'll be about some other topic that I just want to chat about, but don't want to make a fully edited thing on. So I think that fits on my content creation schedule. I think 2 videos a week plus the thing with Jake plus Escape Will Make Me Pod is plenty of Ryan out there. But as I'm recording this, I just hit 500 subscribers today, which means I can apply to the partner program, which means I'm just 500 more away from being able to actually monetize the channel and make some money off of the ads that get played, that you have to watch anyway, that get played on here, which would be just really helpful and kind of life-changing for me and my family. So thank you so much for your support so far. I genuinely appreciate it so much. A like and a subscribe, if you're not, is so helpful to me. But either way, even if you don't want to do that, if you just want to hang out and see if I ever pop up on your algorithm again, I'm totally cool with that. I appreciate you hanging out and watching, and I will see you next time.